Beauty. Dropping a car on a trampoline. We finally did it.
We did something fun this week. We've been talking about doing this for a decade.
I got to drive a wheel loader. That was fun.
You've also been talking about that for a very long time. You're welcome. Thanks to my buddy Scott at Brant Tractor who pulled that off for us. That was pretty cool.
He was casually lending us a $500,000 wheel loader to move some containers and stuff.
John Deere 544P. I got to drive it, and I know nothing about driving equipment, so that was pretty cool.
So we've always wanted to drop a car on our trampolines. We know our trampolines can handle it. We've had 10, 12 fully grown adults. We had that one picture on the trampoline.
At the lake.
Yeah. So like easily we know this 2,000-pound car, it's not going to be an issue. And yeah. But
well, we didn't know. We didn't know so much that we did a trial test on a demo trampoline that I bought back. It was one that we built ourselves back in 2015, 2016. And we sold locally.
I was just sending it.
Oh, I was like, before we put this on the Goliath and make a fool of ourselves in front of cameras, let's just, let's make sure. We've talked about this. We haven't actually done this.
I had full confidence the car would be supported. What I didn't know was if it was going to be sketchy as hell when we started jumping on the trampoline.
It's a good thing the team didn't have the mini Goliath done in time, which forced us to use the full-size Goliath demo.
Why?
Because we had room to get on there and jump along beside it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. We would not have had room otherwise. But no.
You don't want a car landing on you on a trampoline?
We didn't get it to actually bounce that much, but no, the first test run was a legacy Canada trampoline 11x17. We built it about 8 years ago, sold it locally, saw it pop up on Facebook Marketplace last summer, and it was like, hey, that's a good... No. That was the spring I bought that back. That was just the spring. It spent the full 8 years outside. The pads were done. They were pretty rough. They weren't worth fixing anyways. The bed is still salvageable. The original bed is still on it in that video, and we'll cut some clips in, and the original springs. And I was like, before we put this on our Goliath trampoline, which is actually very expensive, and we're just like, yeah, let's test it. Let's test it on this. We used to always tell people, the bed's about 1,000 pounds, for the stitching, and the frame is 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. Pretty big, steel trussing, everything like that. But we were kind of talking out of our butts back in those old sales speeches back in the day. And,
What?
Yeah. Well, okay, I learned from the existing at the time. I won't throw any names out or throw anybody to the bus. But I did as I was told, and that was a sales speech at the time. We did prove it. We did literally drop a car that weighed more than 2,000 pounds on, and it was fine. Not even that. The bed held up perfectly well. The springs didn't even break.
I think that's worth mentioning. Like we didn't touch, we didn't refurbish. A lot of times after 5-10 years, we'll restitch the perimeter of a trampoline jump surface. And this was all original.
So I put out a video. I'm not sure what day this is going live, but probably the few days before. I put a video on the legendary CTM Canada Trampoline Manufacturers 11x17, and it was that trampoline. I put new pads on it, but it was original bed.
You're overcomplicating it. It's ours. Like Canada Trampoline is our old brand.
Yeah. You could see the sun bleached thread where it was exposed to the sun for 8 years. And that was the bed that we put the car on. And then we pulled the car off, and I jumped on it, did a backflip, like it was good as new. It was, good as 8 years old. So
it's actually still surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the 9-inch standard springs we use aren't a match for the Music Wire. That wasn't even Music Wire springs. That was our standard springs. The Music Wire springs do give you much better, deeper, like unlimited feeling bounce, bottomless bounce.
Well, they give you more durability too. You can stretch them quite a bit further. So arguably you should not be point loading a trampoline with 500 pounds of pressure in 4 points on the edge of the jump surface. Like
on the edge where you're inches away from springs. So you're point loading a handful of springs.
So if we wanted to be like one of the other guys and go and stage a photo like this, there's a bunch of tricks and gimmicks you could do to try and make it support a car when it wouldn't normally. But this is a straight, plain, entry-level trampoline that's 8 years old that we made. Now
you take one spherical ball and mass and you drop it in the center of the trampoline, so all the springs, the entire frame is supporting it uniformly.
But I actually came across another video a few years back, but they put the car on the frame.
It
wasn't even on the jump surface.
We could put a bus on this frame. If we could put a car on the trampoline.
Try number 2.
Yeah, I honestly, Brant, lend us something bigger. We'll put something bigger on it.
We don't even need something bigger. And that was actually part of the fun part is Brant was going to give us a forklift, and we're like, hey, you know what? This actually checks all the boxes. It's going to move the containers really well, and but it's not as cool.
There was a lot of last minute logistics. We didn't know what we were getting until the day we got it. It was going to be a 644, no 624. Then it was nope, they didn't have forks to match it, but they had a 5. That 544 we got, that came in on trade the day we got it.
Okay, but at the same time, I don't think Brant is casually expecting a trampoline company to reach out and go, hey, can we borrow a $500,000 wheel loader to go drop a car on a trampoline?
You know, the personal connection. Thank you, and Scott. And thank you for Sam and Rory at the local branch for acquiescing to his Scott's request to help out a buddy. So we did cool things.
We need to add that to the purchase list too. That's a nice toy. Someday.
I want a 30-ton excavator.
Yeah.
You get your Porsche. One day I just want a 30-ton excavator. But
so yeah, no, both the old 11x17, phenomenal, and the brand new Goliath 2.0, or what we're calling just our Goliath, awesome, rock solid.
Yeah. So that was that was the test. Was put on the old trampoline because if it breaks, like, oh well, we won't tell anybody. We would have probably talked about it.
You have no confidence.
No. Well, I mean, just, you know, if something's going to go wrong, they do a test run. We can joke about it later, but just, you know, let's know. And then we did the Goliath. Then we did the full deal. And then we actually jumped with it.
The dust has settled. It worked. I think we can always stand behind that. What's going through our minds as we're doing that is we're checking the frame. We're checking the frame connection points. So the frame, we're checking to see if it's bowing, if it's not handling the stress. We're checking the connection points to see if there's any stretching, cracking, any welds that are starting to go. We're looking at the springs to see if they're overstretching in any way, shape, or form. If the stitching's starting to pull out on the perimeter of the jump surface.
The triangle's really pulling.
We're watching for all these typical points of failure that you'd look for in an overloading situation. And absolutely nothing. Rock solid through and through. And that's when we knew it was safe to go ahead and actually climb on the trampoline. So.
Okay, you looked up more stuff than I did. I was like, that looks good. I jumped on. You're like, right, who's got the balls to jump? I'm like, I jumped on there.
So we weren't just winging this. Like, we've done trampoline testing. We've done component testing. We've seen these things fail. Like, even if you do a pull test on a triangle, you'll actually see our triangles consistently fail a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. But that's like 600 pounds of force on one little triangle compared to our competitors, like 100 pounds where they started failing. So we knew what we were getting into, but these were the things we're watching for as we're doing a what do we call it? A stunt where we're putting a 2,000-pound vehicle on a consumer-grade trampoline.
Wouldn't call it exactly controlled test, but somewhat a controlled stunt, maybe.
Yeah.
And things with trampolines, I don't know. At least with our trampolines, they don't tend to go haywire. They don't go to 0 to 100 or 0 to like, oh crap, immediately. It's a progression. So, what's an example of this? Sorry. Like, when you do see beds or trampolines fail instantaneously, it's when the bed is sun-worn and you have a threadbare bed and you're jumping on it.
Like the 11x17.
It was only 8 years old. So that fabric is typically good for 20 years. Typically, what we've seen in our climate in the prairies, fun fact, Regina, Saskatchewan, we have the most hours of sun every year. I'm not sure intensity-wise, but we have the most hours of sun every year. We typically get 20 years out of the base fabric. We use the same base fabric for a very long time. And the stitching around it, if the pads, depending on the tune we use, getting into the weeds, sometimes more of the stitching is exposed. If you use bigger, more performance springs, sometimes less of it's exposed. If you use a standard tune, the pads still cover the stitching. But generically speaking, a little bit of the stitching is exposed, and over time, the sun will wear that out. Even though we use UV stabilized stitching, it does wear out over time. That's the biggest durability affecting thing in an outdoor trampoline. In a trampoline park, it's kids, because kids break all the shit. But outside, it's the sun. It's the UV rays. They break things down. So over time, that wears out. We typically find 8-10 years. That's when you want to do a restitch. So you'll send your trampoline service back to us. We'll replace all the stitching all the way around it. 10 rows of stitching all the way around the entire thing that locks all those triangles back in, all those spring attachment points. And then you're good for another, usually 10 years.
And we reattach them at the same time. Commonly, people don't try and fix them until they actually start failing. And so we just call it a rebuild and restitch, and then good as new.
Yeah, so that's typically. But when you do see, Walmart trampolines must be using different fabric, because you see all the videos of them breaking, splitting, whatever. And Walmart has been making trampolines for 20 years. So I don't know where that comes into play. Again, we get jumping surfaces in that have lichen growing on the stitching. Like they're so old, they've got moss, whatever that stuff that grows around the perimeter, and they're still good. The surface is still good. But yeah, if you go lowest common denominator, very cheap stuff, it does break. And that's the surface, that's where it splits instantaneously. And that's where it's threadbare, it's been UV broken down, and you can just go from a surface to you're on the ground, your butt's on the ground in an instant. But the long story is that, that's a very fast failure. In our products, we tend to not see that. We see very slow failures as we're applying more and more and more force. And in this case, I've never seen the car sitting on this thing. That's good. I'm comfortable. I jumped right on there with that thing. And we started bouncing, and then Luke got on too, and we really gave her.
Tried to double bounce, but it doesn't really work with a ball hop bug because there's more weight on the back than there's in the front. So It starts doing this worm thing, and yeah.
Dennis, one of our guys, was right. We probably should have counterbalanced it first. We should have loaded up the front trunk, with something to make it a little bit more equal. But even then, we were trying. We more so did the wave and the worm, than the or the bug, I guess, than a bounce. But at the same time, it's hard to get something that weighs over 2,000 pounds bouncing to the point where it's airborne. That'd be a fun challenge going forward. We could try that, but that was an effort. And I remember even doing it for like 30 seconds, we were both just gassed.
That was a lot.
That was a lot of work. So.
You were talking before about kind of comparison of different trampolines, and that's really where this idea came from. I know I always found it frustrating before we had Scott on the team, and you and I were handling all the sales inquiries when they were coming in the spring. Probably a third of the customers are a little more price conscious, and they're going like, okay, but why? Why should I spend $2,500 on a trampoline when I can buy a big box store trampoline for $500? And it's so frustrating because everyone says high quality nowadays. Everyone says durable, but it's not actually true. Like we see all the enclosure nets out there that are failing after 2 years of UV exposure and stuff like that. We talked
about this morning with the truck driver.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a trampoline. It's failed. The enclosure failed. And we even said like, hey, our old dealer network, back when we were just a manufacturer, we sold through dealers. Our dealers brought in good quality nets from Vietnam. And they were the best that was kind of out there. We didn't make an enclosure. We just made trampolines. Because we make trampolines from the era where there weren't enclosures. There were trampolines, and there were common sense. You didn't fall off the trampoline unless you wanted to get hurt. So we did those, and they just kind of retrofitted them, and they kind of fit on our trampolines okay. And they were pretty good. They were decently expensive.
Well, let's just put it this way.
3 or 4 years.
And that's why the dealers loved them. They even told us that. Like, we tried coming out with a good product, a better product, and that's what we sell now. But the dealers wouldn't sell it because they actually wanted people to come back after 3 years. Otherwise, they didn't see them again until 10 years.
No, it was 2013. I remember because I worked for this company since 2009. I set up all these enclosures. I set up all the trampolines we sold locally. I personally had to go set up, and the rentals and everything. And these trampoline nets they took twice as long to set up as the trampoline did itself, because we had a pretty streamlined system. And the nets were such a pain in the butt. Frick. The clamping system, one thing, if you have to do those U-bolts with all those things suck. We use heavy duty fencing clamps. It's 1 bolt per clamp. Super easy.
And these are American made. Yes. Like these are heavy duty, thick, like.
Yeah, they're made in Texas. So, and then the poles were just straight. You had to like measure them off the ground to get them proper. And that was a pain because I'm a one-man crew trying to measure this thing, holding it with my chin while I'm measuring something off the ground to get the right height, and while tightening all these stupid U-bolts. So I was like, this is dumb. Our legs have a bend in them. Let's make a bend in the poles so they match up perfect. We should probably do a podcast on our enclosure system.
Yeah, you're getting a little off track.
Yeah. So anyways, we made that so you just line it up. It's tool free. You have one tool, but anyways, measurement free. I've got so off track, I'm not even sure I was anymore. So this dude this morning, he was telling us about these enclosures. Our enclosures, back when we first made these things, cost twice as much as the Vietnam ones. Made in Canada. I was not making much money on these things, but they cost twice as much as what our dealer network had to pay for these Vietnam ones.
Okay, but you're missing.
And they didn't want to sell them.
Yeah, the story with the trucker was he bought this big box store trampoline, and he's like, hey, the net's shot. Should I just buy a new net from you guys? And had to break the news to him. Well, the entire trampoline is basically designed to last a few years.
Yeah.
So sure, we're going to sell you a high quality net. It's going to be $600, $700, $800 for your $500 trampoline. And then next year your pads are going to fall apart, and then your bed's going to fall apart, and then your springs are going to overstretch. And it's like, by the time you get through it, you've bought a good high quality trampoline, if not 30%, 40% more, because you've done it piecemeal. So you're better off just to buy a good product from the start. Now, our trampolines are for everyone, but if you got kids that are rambunctious, you got a busy household, the neighbors always end up at your house.
I would argue because China has upped their game to the point where they're pushing $2,000, $1,500, $2,000 trampolines.
Don't even get me going.
Okay, but we're getting close because we came up with the silverback line. We have our Apex line, which is our fancy stuff, that starts at $5,000, but we have our silverback line, which starts at half that, and it's as robust, durable, user-friendly as anything else. It's not as fit and finished as fancy, but it gets you all your basics. It is the best balance for your buck, and there's a size for every backyard.
Do not buy a high-quality trampoline from China because they're all absolute garbage, and all they're doing is raising the price for perceived value. I have yet to find a good trampoline from overseas. They are all absolute garbage compared to ours for the same value.
Okay, well, the Acon Air, which costs like $4,000.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, it comes in a million pieces.
Yeah.
It bounces not bad. They've done something cool with their bed. They've I'll give them some credit. And again,
how much is that trampoline?
It's more expensive than our base, like all of it. It's not as expensive as our most expensive trampoline.
Why don't you buy their 2-string while you're at it?
Okay, well, the 2-string, again, that's where I have to take the owner and
three times as much as an Olympic mate.
That thing is horrible. But I still stand by it. The owner is the original owner. He's some kid that jumped out of trampoline in America, proper trampoline.
I wouldn't even just pick on them. I've not found a single overseas manufactured brand that gives you value for the money at that price point.
No, I'm giving them some credit, but the other guys are pretty much just...
They don't deserve any credit. If you want a cheap frickin' trampoline that's going to last 2 years, sure, go buy one of their pieces of junk. But that's what you should expect to get out of it.
They don't make their stuff. We are actually the manufacturer. We make our stuff.
Should we talk about Vuli?
I don't think they're relevant. I think they died. Didn't they die a couple of years ago? Like they're not even relevant anymore.
No, they're still around.
Are they?
Yeah, and they're that like uber high price point. They're not actually a trampoline. They're like a mattress.
I don't know. I haven't even seen Spring Free ads this year. I've just seen Acon shit.
They sell tents that go across the top because you can't even jump that high, so you don't have to worry about hitting your head.
That's like our next podcast is trampoline gimmicks, and we're talking about the tents that Acon sells. And I was actually thinking that was kind of cool, but limited. You have to take it off every time. At least with our trampolines, you take it off every time because you would break your neck, but you'd hit it because our trampolines have a bounce. But
so where this whole thing came from is the frustration of people saying like, "Hey, why should I buy one of your trampolines? Because these other guys are so much cheaper, or these other guys have this gimmicky little system that looks really cool." It's like, ours are just built to perform, and they're built well.
We're talking about the time we dropped a trampoline in a car. That's what this podcast is. I don't know where we are now. Yeah. I have to say one thing, though. I did, like, our netting fabric looks the same. Our nets are made in New Jersey.
Nothing to do with the car.
Our netting is made in New Jersey. We get it custom made for our spec and all that. It looks the same as this Vietnamese shit. The Vietnamese stuff, it starts out blue, it turns purple and then gray over about 3 years. And then you get rips in it.
Okay, I'm going to reel this one back in
I bought back on Facebook Marketplace, not this trampoline that we talked about dropping the trampoline on 8 years ago. The original enclosure I made, this was one of the first ones I ever made back in 2013. One of the first probably 5 that I made, the nets. Because the original net, I did some stupid things, but anyways, the netting was good. I bought this back last summer from a family 50 miles away, and it was the original net. They hadn't even taken the trampoline down. They set it up, they left it. Was outside for 9 freaking years, 10 freaking years.
Okay, now we're just torturing the fish on the hook in the water here. Okay, I'm going to reel this thing in.
And then it's still good.
Where you're talking about and where this correlates is the raw materials. Like you're talking about the netting that's made in Germany, or not Germany, New Jersey. We're talking about the panel clamps that are made in Texas. This is all domestic materials, which is completely different than the overseas raw materials and then the overseas manufacturing.
Yeah.
So when you buy high quality through and through, you can pull off a stunt like putting a car on a trampoline. If you cut corners and don't use high quality materials, they will fail. And I mean, I had a family member actually mention we have an overseas trampoline. We should have dropped a car on that one just to show it pancake almost instantly.
Oh man, that was we should have. Brant, we got to get that wheel loader back.
Yeah. We'll do a bigger one this time. See if they got an 844 or something.
We got to get a bus. Can we talk to Sandra? Can we get a city bus? That'd be fun.
City of Regina, can we get a bus? I don't know.
Sleek Science, can you like deck it out with something cool too? And then we'll take that bus and drop it on it. This is the bus that got dropped on a trampoline. They can do a custom wrap. We could drop it on a trampoline. That'll be awesome.
This is how safe you are to travel on public transit. Your bus was held up by a trampoline. I don't think they're going to be interested in this.
No, that would be fun.
But our trampolines can withstand it. We constantly get pushback on, hey, why should I bother spending good money on a good trampoline? It's because, well, you get what you pay for. So nice to finally have the picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and it shows you the truth.
We have video.
So, picture and video. There you go. But I don't know. This is what we're committed to do. Like, if you buy one of our products or you come to one of our facilities, you're not going to find corners being cut. It's just not worth doing.
Nope.
So,
and we don't stop at trampoline. We made the freaking straps that held that car up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was part of the problem. Is it's like we bought this car, we've barely driven the thing. Someone spent years building it, and here we got this wheel loader that can. That's a nice noise. We get this wheel loader that can lift.
We sold a trampoline. You're the little chicken.
Yeah.
He gets a notification when we sell a trampoline.
You get this wheel loader that can lift 30,000 pounds. It lifts the car like a toy. You don't even feel it when you pull back on the joystick. And yeah, just drop it on this car effortlessly. So
yeah, we didn't just move cars. We rearranged all of our shipping storage containers throughout our whole yard. We have 9. Some of them weighed 12,000 pounds. The ones that weighed 5,000 pounds, you put on top of one another. It was
well, and then
crazy.
our guys left stuff in the containers, and then it was blowing, and it was blowing in the wind, and yeah, no, it was nice having some just big machine, but
yeah, no, it's cool.
And then Armand was like, "Hey, that container's not perfectly accurate." It's like, dude, this is a 30,000-pound wheel loader. It doesn't move in small increments.
It was pretty smooth though.
I slowly got
by Deere.
It'd been 10 years since I drove one, so I slowly got the hang of it again. But yeah, it's also why I lowered the car on extremely slowly. So.
Yeah, all those containers in our yard. I'll say you'll go look at our channel. There's receipts. This stuff looks really good. We got that thing all dialed in.
Maybe next time we'll drop a shipping container on a car.
Ooh.
On a trampoline.
It won't bounce, but
yeah,
it'll support it. So that was pretty fun. That was really cool to close that loop. We've done that. We talked about it for so long.
You know what? Next time we need a crane with a quick release.
We need to
let's
see the car
bounce a trampoline with a car on a trampoline.
Yeah, it needs to be. So we need a trampoline that's higher off the ground though, because we were bottoming out that bug. When we were actually really giving it, we bottomed it out before we could get it.
We'll just do a hyper setup, but with a poly bed.
How to a hyper trap?
Elon Musk, we got a new space program. It's gonna be competition for you.
Yeah, we'll get a car into space on a trip. No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've killed this topic. So like, comment, subscribe.
We want to drop more cars on trampolines.
We're gonna drop more shit on trampolines.
Yeah. Help us get there.
We could do a side channel just dropping shit on trampolines.
I think they did that in Australia, didn't they?
That's whatever that, how ridiculous. But they sometimes use a trampoline. It's not one of ours either. We should probably talk to them. But
we can fix it.
We can fix that, yeah.